So, again, it's a novelization of my experiences on the psychic frontier with Quentin Tarantino. Right? There is no daughter. Right? The starter home. Right? It's all just him to humiliate me. That whole time they were like, "Oh, Hardy! Oh, what a jackass! This guy thinks he's my son." Right? All out of trust, all out of love, to say, "Oh no, I do respect you." Because I felt bad about Tribeca. So, right? I'll take a second to discuss some of the last things that I was regaling in my novel. When I got to equity, he directed me up the way. Right? So, anyone who's read, right, and he fucking hates me right now, right? Anyone who's read Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the novel, knows that, right, that Charles Manson does the same thing with Margaret Qualley's character. Pussycat, I think her name is. Right? So the point being, right, that he was trying to get me arrested, and then when I'm in handcuffs, he'd go, "Gotcha," right? "Now you know the game you're playing." Right? Ha 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 ha. He failed. He had to resort to actual evil to get me to go to the hospital. Right? Which anyone can do. Right? Right? That's why I put that video up that I sent to the Pope. Right? Because you have to be a complete fucking evil degenerate to do any of those things. Right? He'll always deny. Right? He doesn't know anything that I'm talking about. Right? But just read the novel, right? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the novel. Right? Right? So, right, life is not an accident. Right? There's a latent intellect embedded within every cubic centimeter of space, a conscious field, right? Diffused within that is an infinite complex of nested polyhedra, right? Which is a perfectly nested quantum hologram of probability, waveform potential. So the conscious field breathes, exerts pressure upon the hologram, right, which mutates it into what we perceive as the measurable manifested world. The trouble with measurement is only a problem if you don't believe in deity, if you don't believe in God, right? Which is not a creature, right? It's an intellectual quality, right? Right? That when God is at rest, the hologram is a probability of potential, is a quantum electric waveform of probability, right? And then when God exerts, right, the intellectual principle exerts pressure upon the hologram, right, it collapses it, right? Just like the photon gun, right? With man, right? With the trouble with measurement, right? That when we're not observing it, it's a wave, right? When we observe it, it collapses, right? It's the same principle, right? All instances of clairvoyance, right, psychic phenomenon, is the mind of the adept tapping into, right, their connection to the non-local conscious field, right? The conscious resonance which is unilaterally distributed within all space. Right? Right? Again, right? Most clairvoyants, most people who remote view all these things, they don't understand any of that. Right? They don't know anything about that. It's intuitive, right? It's like a musician who doesn't know theory. There's any number of great musicians that don't know theory. Right? Right? So this is Socrates' point in Apology, right? That the oracles at Delphi, right, they offer up their rhapsody, right? Their visions of ecstasy, right? Having no clue about what's occurring scientifically, but that's why I'm here, right? So Quentin is one of the most powerful psychic clairvoyants in the world. For sure, gotta be the most powerful in Hollywood, right? I am the most powerful clairvoyant of the millennial generation, right? We've been in an obtuse psychic siege for going on 2 years now. And I suppose I'll stop because, right, 34 minutes. But pray for me, pray for Quentin, right? Pray to bring this to an amicable resolution. You know? There's no formula where we persist in this way for 10 years. You know, it's just sick. It's just a sick pathological psychology. This is why I'm talking about it, right? This is why I live in perpetual fear that he's going to send people to assassinate me. Because if I'm gone, he has no more problems. But I've imprinted onto his psyche in a palpable way, just like he's imprinted onto mine, him and the people around him. So, right. 9601 Wilshire Boulevard, William Morris Endeavor, right? Mike Simpson. That's his agent. If you wanted to write, if you wanted to help, like, comment, subscribe, share. His movie theater is 1822 North Vermont. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Uplift your soul to God. See what's good in your life. Hold those close to you. Hold those dear to you close. Right? I love you all. Right? Know that life is not an accident. Right? That while we have the horizon of our ignorance, right?